Hi guys, I've had a lot of you ask me about my kefir and how I get it done. So I thought I would just show you what I actually do. In the wintertime, I have this towel that I put around the kefir bottle that just warms it up. I'm guessing maybe 5 or 10 degrees, which seems to just really help. And then of course I have this really thin cloth that I put over the top. But you can see the kefir, when we put brown sugar and molasses in it for the next batch, you'll see that it's a lot darker than this. As you know, the kefir will go and eat the sugar and eat the minerals, and then you can actually see the kefir, the water, lighten up over the 2-day period, which is really a cool thing as it eats it and then puts probiotics back in the water. You can also see the bubbles up here on the top. And that's a really good sign that the kefir has been fermenting. As it ferments, the bubbles rise up to the top. And so having a little layer of bubbles like this is a really good sign that it's working. I've worked on this for a long time, by the way, trying to perfect the recipe and get it to work. I've ended up coming up with what I think is just a nice, simple recipe, something that's more sustainable for me, because you can get pretty detailed on different recipes. So this is simple enough and it works, so I like it. But I put brown sugar, molasses, and then I put a fig in there as well, and the fig goes for 2 batches. And so this is the first batch for this fig, and then I'll put it back in there for a second batch. You'll see that I'll just stir this up, and then I'm gonna pour it into a pitcher with a strainer. So that's a pretty good shot there of what kefir grains look like. And so I'll put this to the side for right now. You don't have to put soap in here. If your dish soap has antibacterial elements to it, I think that it could actually be detrimental to it, because you want to brew this so that it has a nice home for healthy bacteria. And the dish soap will kill good and bad bacteria. So it's a lot like sourdough in the sense that you never wash your sourdough bowl, or rarely wash that, I should say. And that's how this has been too. The last time this has been through the dishwasher has been months ago. So literally I just wash it out like that and then put in a new batch and just go for it. It's super easy that way. I've got another water here that's been sitting out for 2 days. And the reason why I do that is that chlorine actually can evaporate from the water. So I fill this up. It sits for 2 days in my cupboard and the chlorine evaporates. Chlorine is super bad for kefir grains, and I've learned that the hard way, that it does gradually poison the kefir grains over time. So that's why I let it just evaporate out. So I'll take this chlorine-free water. So I know on this bottle, I use it so much, I know right where to fill the water, just right below that C. And then I'll go ahead and fill more water up for the next batch. I take 1 cup of brown sugar, and this is for 1 cup of kefir grains. That's what all this is measured on. So 1 cup of kefir grains equals 1 cup of brown sugar. And then this is kind of tricky. I love this molasses. A lot of people have recommended this. And it's not a measured dose that I put in there, so I wanted to show that it's really, I've had to play around with this a lot too. It's just a little bit, like literally just that much. I've gone through periods where I've been putting too much molasses in there, and when the kefir grains have too much mineral, it actually imbalances it and the kefir grains get stinky. And it's kind of hard to get it back on balance. It's really tricky to find it, because if you don't have enough minerals in there, the grains get stinky. If you have too many minerals, the grains get stinky. I found in Utah, at our elevation and everything, all the variables at play, this amount of mineral is just right and keeps them nice and healthy. So I'll put fig back in there, and then I just reintroduce the kefir grains back into the water. Whoops, I forgot to actually stir the sugar. That's something I usually do, but not a huge deal. Just stir it and dissolve it all up. And then put the grains back in. And then that's ready for the next batch. You go online and lots of people talk about using metal on kefir grains and how it's harmful. There's a lot of, I think, myth around that. When it's stainless steel, it truly doesn't matter. If it's iron or exposed metal like that, then of course it would matter, because the iron would actually, the metal would leach into the liquid. But since it's stainless steel, not a big deal. Then I literally just put it right back into the towel like that. And then I put the cloth back on, and then I just wrap this around again. In the summertime, you definitely don't need a towel. But in the wintertime, I just found that extra 5 to 10 degrees is super helpful in being able to help it ferment at the same speed that you're used to. Otherwise, it does slow it down a lot. Here are the bottles, of course. You've got to have like a really good quality product tested bottle, or there's so much pressure that builds in there on the second ferment that they actually could crack and explode. So don't get cheap bottles. If you get a good quality bottle that's product tested, then you have no worries, and it works out just great. You can see that I've got my funnel ready, and I like to give this a good little stir. When you do pour that in there through the filter, there are teeny little grains that come through, and so it's nice to stir that and mix it up so each bottle gets a little bit of the baby kefirs. So I do that, obviously, 4 times down the row. And for the sake of time, I will not bore you with that. But then, my wife and I love the red grape, and this is what we get. It's obviously no sugar added, just 100% grape juice. We got tricked once, so it's the exact same packaging, and it's grape cocktail, and it's not nearly as thick as this, and it wasn't nearly as good. So be careful when you buy this from the store and not get the cocktail version, but this version right here. So I like to pour it out and have it in a mason jar like this, and then I can seal it, because we'll use maybe a third of that, and then I like to seal it back up and put it in the fridge, and it'll last just fine. What we do is we actually put in 4 tablespoons of this. Then on the second ferment, the kefir in here will eat the natural sugars in the grape juice, and then tomorrow afternoon it'll be ready to be burped, which means you simply pop that top, and then the carbon dioxide that's been building in here from the ferment obviously releases, and it pops, and if you're not careful, sometimes it can come up over the top, but usually it just pops, and then you let it breathe for a little bit, and then seal it back up and put it in the fridge for the next day, so it's nice and chilled. And that's basically it in a nutshell. After I put it in there, then I just give it a shake like this, and then just let it sit out on the counter for another 24 hours, and you'll see the bubbles start to build up in here as well. And then you've got yourself a delicious tasting water kefir that's super healthy and that will make a nice difference in your life.